following podcast is brought to you by A.C.T, Agora Center of Thought. Here only on the Voluntary Virtues Network. Every Saturday, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on the dark side of radio. Agora, Anarchy, Action. How goes it, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome. This is the Agora Underground. As you know, we are live every Saturday, and this time we are broadcasting a little bit earlier than usual, 5:30 here Central Standard Time, but we are going to bring it with some Rothbard as usual, and we do appreciate y'all tuning in. This is Comrade Dick sitting here with Darian.
What's going on, everybody? I'm excited to read this. I was reading a little bit earlier with Richard, and he got some pretty interesting things to say in here, as far as like coercive intervention goes, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. We are going through the Power and Market section of Man, Economy, and State, and I believe we last week we finished up. I read through section 1, chapter 1 of Power and Market, kind of just outlined some basic truths there as far as laissez-faire and the contradictions within it, and how a stateless society, a truly free market society, a voluntary society would require privatized security firms. And read a little bit about that. And now we're going to get into section 2 here about different forms of intervention. Here, I'm looking for the page on the PDF. I believe, what page is it in the book, Darian?
1057.
1057. And the second part of Power and Market is about 500 pages, for a little bit over 400 something, 50 pages long. And it's just wicked cool, filled up with information there. Definitely suggest y'all getting a copy. Mises, the Mises Institute definitely has it for really affordable, $15 or something like that for the pocket edition. So definitely check them out, support them, because this is a classic here as far as economics goes. And in this chapter 2, it's the fundamentals of intervention. Chapter 2, section 1 is types of intervention. So Rothbard begins saying that we have so far contemplated a free society and a free market where any needed defense against violent invasion of person and property is supplied not by the state, but by freely competitive, marketable defense agencies. Our major task in this volume is to analyze the effects of various types of violent intervention in society, and specifically in the market. Most of our examples will deal with the state, since the state is uniquely the agency engaged in regularized violence on a large scale. However, our analysis applies to the extent that any individual or group commits violent invasion. Whether the invasion is legal, in quotations, or not does not concern us, since we are engaged in praxeological, not legal analysis. Pretty straightforward. So we're going to try to outline and see what the effects of violent intervention, whether from individuals, groups, or in the name of states or in the name of private interest, what kind of effects that has on the market and on society at large. It continues on here to say that one of the most lucid analyses of the distinction between state and market was set forth by Franz Oppenheimer. He pointed out that there are fundamentally two ways of satisfying a person's wants. One, by production and voluntary exchange with others on the market, and two, by violent expropriation of the wealth of others. The first method, Oppenheimer termed the economic means for the satisfaction of wants. The second method he deemed the political means. The state is trenchantly defined as the organization of the political means. So that's pretty mind-blowing there as far as properly identifying that there's two ways to gain wealth and gain of something of value, either through producing it yourself by transforming nature, or by trading, right? Your time and energy, your labor, or trading something that you produced yourself, or trading something that you traded something, to get. So there's, the market means, and then there's stealing and basically taking the political means. And the reason it's people, a lot of people think, well, what about the criminal means? Doesn't that, isn't that a means in itself?
Well, the criminal ideology is pretty much very status.
Yeah, that's very true.
and,
That's very
and
true. And in numbers, and simply in numbers, when you put compare the two side by side, the criminal aspect versus the state aspect, the state and the political means far outweighs the criminal activity of society, and so and besides, criminal activity is not institutionalized. It's on the sporadic, on the rampant, spontaneous on the sporadic, definitely. So he goes on to say here that a generic term is needed to designate an individual or group that commits invasive violence in society. We may call the intervener or the invader one who intervenes violently in a free society or market relations. The term applies to any individual or group that initiates violence uh, or violent intervention in the free actions of persons and property owners. What types of intervention can the invader commit? Broadly, we may distinguish three categories. In the first place, the intervener may command an individual to subject, to do or not to do certain things when these actions directly involve the individual person or property alone. In short, he restricts the subject's use of his property when exchange is not involved. This may be called an autistic intervention. For any specific command directly involves only the subject himself. So, what would be some examples of this autistic intervention? There's no exchange involved at all. So, autistic intervention would be the idea of certain substances being deemed illegal to ingest,
uh,
right? It has nothing to do with even trading the substance for something else. It has to do with simply ingesting it for yourself, and it's deemed illegal. Um,
More on drugs.
or yeah, right. Or what you can do with your own property, right? There's a lot of restrictions on how you can cultivate your land on your own property, right? Whether you can grow
Yeah,
food,
yeah.
or
You
whether you
need
can make a well, or whether you can collect rainwater.
yeah, you need state improved insurance, health insurance, because if you're not seeing a 21st century doctor, then it's illegal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that one would definitely be an exchange involved there,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you're having to see the doctor. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess having to register and get your all your goods licensed and registered, like your car, right? You already bought it. So they're not intervening on you buying it. They're just intervening on what you can do with the car. So you can't drive it without a certain sticker or without a certain license, or whatever. So they're having autistic intervention at that point on your property or on your body, that doesn't involve direct exchange of any form. Secondly, there is the case where the intervener may enforce a coerced exchange between the individual subject and himself, or a coerced gift to himself from the subject. This would be the classical case of, using your tax money to pay for schools, and using your tax money to pay for police and jails and roads and the military and
And
everything else.
police.
Yeah, and the Medicare field and all this. I mean, um, we're being forced into this exchange, right? We barely even call it an exchange. I mean, it's in italics here because it's not really even defined as an exchange, since we're being forced to do it uh, anyway. But we do get something in return. It isn't just a straight up, you know, straight out taking of something, all out without something in return. But nonetheless, it is a forced exchange, and usually it's one end is usually ripping off the other when an exchange is forced like that. Obviously,
Well, yeah,
uh,
definitely taking an arm and a leg.
yeah. I mean, if you can't sell your your sandwich freely, if people don't want to buy it freely, I mean, it probably isn't that good. So forcing people isn't gonna.
Right. Just
So
because they think it's in the good investment of their utility.
yeah, yeah. Really, it's not. So thirdly, the invader may either compel or prohibit an exchange between a pair of subjects. So that's the last one there. So the third has to do with intervention on stopping two individuals from forming their own contract or their own exchange. So um, the act of selling, right, and the illegal substances would, that aspect of the drug war would be this type of intervention. Um, what else? Taxes, right? In general, sales taxes on commerce would be this form of intervention where the gas station or whoever, the store is selling you a good, and you're both having to pay up some taxes on it in some form. Maybe the store sometimes, in some cases, maybe is exempt from the taxes, and only the consumer at the end, way at the bottom of the line of the chain has to pay the taxes. Sometimes that's the case, but sometimes there's taxes all the way through, and vice, or something in between. But um, so the first one, the autistic, may be called a form of binary intervention since a hegemonic relation is established between two people, the intervener and the subject. So it is sort of a binary intervention, obviously, autistic intervention, because it involves the state telling you what you can or can't do with your own property or your own self. The latter, the involving two other people, may be called a triangular intervention, since a hegemonic relation is created between the invader and a pair of exchangers or would-be exchangers, could be exchangers, right? The market, complex though it may be, consists of a series of exchanges between pairs of individuals. However extensive the intrusions and the interventions, then they may be resolved into unit impacts on either individual subjects or pairs of individual subjects. So obviously, these interventions, all Rothbard is saying here that these interventions are, since the market's so complex and consists of all these series of different exchanges between individuals, any form of extensive intervention is going to have a major impact on individuals exchanging and groups of individuals exchanging. I mean, obviously. This is where the infamous seen and unseen comes into economics, right? Can you perceive those effects that were unintended and unstated by the law? When there's a law that's passed, an institution that's formed, there's always negative effects, right? There's always unintended consequences of such actions. And if you can determine those, if you can see those right and correctly, then you're that much better of an economist. That much more adapt to seeing the sly nature of the state and the bullshit they try to shove down our throats.
Yeah.
So all these types of intervention, Rothbard here continues, of course, are subdivisions of hegemonic relation, the relation of command and obedience, as, of course, contrasted with the contractual relation of voluntary mutual benefit. Autistic intervention occurs when the invader coerces a subject without receiving any good or service in return. Widely desperate types of autistic intervention are homicide, assault, and compulsory enforcement or prohibition of any salute, speech, or religious observance. Even if the intervener is the state which issues the edict to all individuals in society, the edict is still in itself an autistic intervention, since the lines of force, so to speak, radiate from the state to each individual alone. What's up? What's up? Yeah, so it's just really neat there.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was pretty interesting there. He really called it out.
yeah, definitely. I mean, that's all that comes out and radiates from the state is just force.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
that's almost like a given, right? Like everybody knows that the statist institution is the most violently.
yeah. So he goes on to say here that binary intervention occurs when the invader forces a subject to make an exchange or a unilateral gift or some good or service to the invader. Highway robbery and taxes are examples of binary intervention, as are conscription and compulsory jury service. And right. I mean, yeah. So all these would be forms of binary intervention where supposedly you're getting something in return, but you're being forced into the exchange. So you go to jury duty, and you get paid, what is it, like $6 an hour or whatever,
$6 an hour below minimum wage for jury duty.
something like that. Yeah,
Sometimes that's a hassle for people to go to jury duty.
yeah. It's pretty outrageous. And then yeah, so that would be in taxes, obviously, where we supposedly get a return of on roads, or return on schooling and healthcare and things of this nature, all your socialized programs. These are examples of binary intervention where we're forced into this exchange. And then here Rothbard continues on to say that whether the binary hegemonic relation is coerced gift or a coerced exchange does not really matter a great deal. The only difference is in the type of coercion involved. Slavery, of course, is usually a coerced exchange, since the slave owner must supply his slaves with subsistence. So yeah, so this would be a binary example of hegemonic control, or a binary intervention, because there is a reciprocal effect. The slave owner isn't just killing, um, right, the slaves, and that's and slaughtering them, um, or imprisoning them, and killing them to death. In other words, starving them to death or something of that sort. At that point, it would just be autistic intervention, right? There's no
Yeah,
exchange going on there.
this
Um,
is all forceful.
yeah, it's nothing but no mercy.
Yeah,
But with the binary intervention, I mean, the slave is obviously kept alive, because he's economically incentive, right? It's an incentive
yeah, yeah.
for
He's a means of production at that sense, right?
right for the slave owner. So the slave owner has to give him shelter, or else the slave is going to get sick or die, and the slave owner has to give him food, and slave owner probably has to educate him in a couple different things, or else the guy's going to not be able to cook, or not be able to
He's not.
farm
He's not even gonna
correctly.
be able to, understand what the hell you're trying to tell him.
Got to get the linguistics going a little
You
bit.
gotta get linguistics.
Yeah, yeah. Who was it? Darren and I were reading some other little article last night, and the point it made about slavery being, for the times that we were in, especially like the Hebrews. A lot of people will bring up the atrocities of the Hebrews. How could they own slaves and this and that? And historically, through historicism, people kind of fail to realize that the time of the days, how the times were, and really it was for those times, having a slave, enslaving somebody was a humanitarian endeavor, compared to what was the traditional thing to
The
do with
traditional thing was just to like,
slaughter them.
take just to take him off the face of the earth. So yeah, a little bit more humanitarian as in like, oh, we'll keep you alive. You get to live. You might even reproduce. So
Yeah,
in that sense, like
just
that,
pay your taxes.
right? Or well, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Tribute, right? Pay your tributes.
Damn, did they pay the taxes? Damn, you're a slave and you still a slave to taxes. Damn, that's
Oh,
a double. That's a double whammy.
that's the definition of a slave.
Damn, double whammy.
It's a definition,
It's
man.
like, master, don't you think the chains are enough? You don't pay me enough money. You don't pay. Actually, you don't pay me any money to pay taxes.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. So these are some examples of that. Um. And then we, went off there on the slave thing for whatever reason, but yeah, I mean, that's important to realize that it's binary, and this is just an arbitrary definition. Rothbard here. Really, he's doing is trying to find a way to describe different forms of intervention. It doesn't have to necessarily be this way. If you find a better way of defining different forms of intervention, by all means, come out and share it. But he's looking at it from the point of view of an exchange and interventions upon exchanges. So of course you have, so of course you have all these three that we went through. So that's the way, those are the perspective he's looking at it from, which is a pretty legit perspective. I don't know where else I would want to look at it from. Um, so he goes on here to say that, curiously enough, writers on political economy have recognized only the third category as intervention. It is understandable that the preoccupation with catalytic problems has led economists to overlook the broader praxeological category of actions that lie outside the monetary exchange nexus. Nevertheless, they are part of the subject matter of praxeology and should be subject to analysis. There is far less excuse for economists to neglect the binary category of intervention. Yet many economists who profess to be champions of the free market and opponents of interference with it have a particularly narrow view of freedom and intervention. Acts of binary intervention, such as conscription and the imposition of income taxes, are not considered intervention at all, nor as interference with the free market. Only instances of triangular intervention, such as price controls, are conceded to be intervention.
Hmm.
Curious schemata are developed in which the market is considered absolutely free and unhampered despite a regular system of imposed taxation. Yet taxes and conscripts are paid in money and thus enter the catalytic as well as a wider praxeological nexus. Excellent point. Excellent point. And I'm sure here, most definitely sure that Rothbard is referring to our good old buddies over there in Chicago under the prowess of Milton Friedman, the Chicago School of Economics, which the monetarists, uh, the I guess the social, I guess you could, fiscally conservative guys, they think that so long as we get rid of triangular intervention, and so long as we get rid of government intervening in the market, and not so much in, as long as we get rid of that government intervening in the market, we're completely free. Of course, they fail to realize that government intervening on how people can use their property, how people can use their bodies, and also intervening on these exchanges that you're forced to go into. Like I have to pay for public school, I have to pay for the roads.
The binding contract,
Right, the
written,
social contract.
written in stone before you were even born.
Yeah. So the Chicago school is completely cool with income tax and a flat tax, and completely cool with social nets paid for by tax dollars,
Yeah, receiving gifts.
and completely cool with roads being paid by the government and the military and the police and the judicial system and all this. Even constitutionalists, turn a blind eye to, when you think about it, triangular intervention. Even, when you think about it, because they're willing. So many of them are willing to fund this new constitutional, republic on commerce. They'll suggest, many of them, 90+% when you talk to them, will suggest a 1% tax on all exchanges, on all commercial exchanges. What they fail to realize, that sounds grand and dandy if it works, right? If everyone just submits and everyone's happy with it and the money is spent properly, and we have above neo humans controlling the money, the money and the control of resources, yeah, that all that would work great. But unfortunately, that's not the case, right? I mean, we live in a fallible world with human beings that are quite willing to use their positions of power to benefit themselves at the expense of others. And that's just the way it's going to be. And these constitutionalists fail to realize that asking for a constitutional republic paid for by commerce, 1% tax or 2% tax, is actually not only an intervention, like we've been saying, a triangular intervention upon the whole market, but it's also a wide open door for Big Brother. Yeah, let's go ahead and have Big Brother, knowingly take a percentage out of every single transaction. Like you're basically calling for the Big Brother nanny state that we have today, right? I mean, why not have an EPA and an FDA and all these regulatory agencies after the fact then as well? We might as well have them, right? If government controls commerce, well, then it's got to regulate commerce too. If it can tax it, it can regulate it. So it just opens up a whole spider web of just statism coming out of monopolistic hegemonic control, coming out. Um, and so the fact that the fact that these autistic or triangular interventions do eventually affect our money supply, taxes and so on and so forth, then it does have to do with economics, right? And catalytics and praxeological um, decision making. So really good point, I think, on Rothbard's point there. He's attacking all these halfway. It's the halfwayers, right? It's the half-ass, the lukewarm party, right? We like free markets, but not we don't like free markets. We like markets, but not free markets or
We like staged markets.
stage markets.
We're like it to look like it's free, but it's not really free.
All right, free. That's nuts. It's nuts, and this is a major issue with the even with the Republican Party, right? This is why the Republican Party is having the split that it's going through, and it's been going through for the last couple of decades. You have your neoconservative, your religious, Christian right within there, and then you also have your libertarian wing of individuals, and you have all these other people that feel like the market's a solution. Want to talk about this or that in the market, how great it is, and how we need to cut back on taxes, but they don't really see the fact that that's the biggest interventionist is the state. I mean, so what the hell are we doing? So in tracing, he continues on here. We're on page 1060, Rothbard there at the bottom paragraph. In tracing the effects of intervention, one must take care to analyze all its consequences, direct and indirect. It is impossible in the space of this volume to trace all the effects of every one of the almost infinite number of possible varieties of intervention, but sufficient analysis can be made of the important categories of intervention and the consequences of each. Thus, it must be remembered that the acts of binary intervention have definite triangular repercussions. An income tax will shift the pattern of exchanges between subjects from what is otherwise would have been. Furthermore, all the consequences of an act must be considered. It is not sufficient to engage in a partial equilibrium analysis of taxation, for example, and to consider a tax completely apart from the fact that the state subsequently spends tax money. That's another great point there. He brings up the classic Bastiat point. Not only are we dealing with money, monetary policy here, with taxation and all that, and obviously economics, but also the fact that since we're losing money, that's money that would have gone to somebody else. So somebody else is losing money on a deal there. I have less money myself because because of taxes and all this stuff, and thus I didn't buy this or that, right?
Yeah, what taxes sound like to me? Bad investments.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding, no kidding. I like this. I like this little sub quote here that he points out. He says here that I don't know who exactly wrote this little sub. It's a sub note on what we've been reading. It says here that a narrow view of freedom is characteristic in the present day, in the political lexicon of modern America. Quote, left wingers, right? Democrats often advocate freedom in the sense of opposition to autistic intervention. So yeah, Democrats want gays to be able to have gay marriage, you know um, the drug war basically to stop, less victimless crimes, obviously less victimless crimes, stuff like that. Free, no restrictions on free speech, so on and so forth. But they look benignly, they turn the other cheek. They look close their eyes on triangular intervention, on taxation between other people, people selling. So between the seller and the buyer, they don't have an issue with that, right? Right wingers, Republicans, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, severely oppose triangular intervention. Right? Let's cut taxes for the businesses. Let's cut taxes for the rich, right? Because they'll produce more jobs. but they tend to favor or remain indifferent to autistic intervention. Yeah, who cares about the pothead and who cares about you know
Who cares
the
about that?
stripper or whatever.
The stripper, the pothead, the busser, you know.
Yeah, and they're more likely to be against free speech, even though we've seen that the Green and Party and the so-called left and the Democrats are just as much capable of Nazi socialized you know censoring of speech than you know as the Nazis were. So I mean
That's a Nazi story.
they don't care about free speech. No one cares about free speech. Yeah, but yeah, so they're both ambivalent towards binary intervention. Um, so they both, the right wingers, they don't care about autistic intervention, and both groups are ambivalent, yeah, towards binary intervention. They don't care about all those. No one bitches about the roads and about schools and the military and all the great things the government does for us.
Right. So it's like, thank you, government, for all this free stuff.
Yeah,
We totally needed it.
yeah. Without y'all, I don't know what we would have done. I think we would have just all
You know,
starved to
like
death.
I don't know what I would have done without y'all having if y'all didn't install, new speed bumps in my neighborhood. There's just so many speed bumps, and I'm so thankful for them.
Well, the roads wouldn't be there, and the cars wouldn't exist, and you would have never been born, dude. That's the way it goes. You would have never been born if it wasn't for government.
If it wasn't for government, that there wouldn't be humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
They'd be like, they need to be reminded why they need us. It's like, nah, we don't need you.
Get out of here. This is Sparta. Yeah, so we've made it to part 2 here, section 2 of chapter 2. And this section is called Direct Effects of Intervention on Utility. And there's different subsections here. So this section A is intervention and conflict. And this is under direct effects of intervention on utility, power and market fundamentals of intervention. So he says here that the first step in analyzing intervention is to contrast the direct effect on the utilities of the participants with the effect of the free society. When people are free to act, they will always act in a way that they believe will maximize their utility. An example will raise them to the highest possible position on their value scale. Their utility ex ante beforehand will be maximized, provided we take care to interpret utility in an ordinal rather than a cardinal manner. Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that the utility of things, according to each individual, is all placed in an orderly fashion. Everybody has their own list of orderly, you know, value scales, if you will. Things that they value the most on forward to things that they value less, and less and less and less. And as you go down the list, it's just less and less. This doesn't mean that these desires or these wants or these needs are going to be put in order of cardinal importance, of importance or whatnot. People sometimes don't do that. I mean, that we're not rational and meticulous and mathematical and precise every single decision, down the way. Human beings make decisions based on emotion and based on irrationality and sometimes quick decisions or decisions that they didn't think through all the way.
Yeah, I'm always jumping to conclusions.
Right. So our values, our utility values are ordered, you know, as far as our personal liking goes, rather than actual order of importance. Though the two may coincide, if you try to be a wise guy. Trying to be wise, you know. So he continues on to say that any action, any exchange that takes place on the free market, or more broadly in a free society, occurs because of the expected benefit to each party concerned. If we allow ourselves to use the term society to depict the pattern of all individual exchanges, then we must say that the free market maximizes social utility, since everyone gains in utility. Yeah, I mean this is the exact perfect point, right? I mean, only you know your utility and your personal value scale, and only you can satisfy those needs most precisely and directly. Obviously, I don't know your needs better than you do. You know that, um, so I can't give you what you would use. I can't give you what your utilities would be, because I don't know. That would be according to my estimation, and that would be completely wrong because I don't know what your desires are. I don't know what your plans are. You may want to buy a whole, I don't know, like 50 kilos of corn because you have something in plan, in mind for that, and that would never come to my idea to give you 50 kilos of corn just out of the blue like that.
It's just like, look. I can grow corn in winter. Don't worry about it. You just make this investment, and I have it settled.
Yeah, I mean it can be at whatever. You make corn and make a whole bunch of tortillas. Like how do I know, um being an someone that intervenes in the market and the economy like the government does, how
Mhm.
do I know what your maximum utility is for any given subject or that money or whatever?
Yeah.
um so because of that, because of intervention, the market or society is left less uh, with less utility, with a lower standard of value, with according to everybody's individual choice making.
Uh,
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore, man. I mean,
that's pretty getting pretty like poetic into the sense that it's like getting right to the soul.
yeah, right. I mean, there's just definitely nothing that government could really add to society at all, like really
Well,
at
because
all.
they produce nothing but violence.
Yeah, and it's forced, so it definitely cuts down on the utility of everybody. So we must be careful. Here comes on to say that we must be careful, however, not to hypothesize society into a real entity that means something else than an array of all individuals. Right. Um, yeah, he's just stating here, just because we're using terms like society doesn't mean we're being collectivist here. Coercive intervention, on the other hand, signifies per se that the individual or individuals coerced would not have done what they are now doing were it not for the intervention. The individual who is coerced into saying or not saying something, or into making or not making an exchange with the intervener or with someone else, is having his actions changed by a threat of violence. The coerced individual loses in utility as a result of the intervention, for his action has been changed by its impact. Any intervention, whether it be autistic, binary, or triangular, causes the subjects to lose in utility. In autistic and binary intervention, each individual loses in utility. In triangular intervention, at least one, and sometimes both, of the pair of would be exchangers lose in utility. Yeah, so we're having our decisions changed to less gratifiable, right? It's like you're having to make choice B or C or D.
Or E.
Yeah, and you got neglected choice A because you got funds taken from you.
Either that, or you just messed up.
Well, yeah, but if you mess up, then that's on you. That's on you. But
But I
if
mean,
if you
getting your
get it,
funds taken from you is messing up. So yes.
okay, okay, getting kind of rebellious there.
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to be a slave, that's your fault, right?
Yeah,
This
definitely.
show is for those that want to resist, for those that want to be free, not for those that enjoy their servitude.
So if you like government, freebies and handouts, and well, this is not the show for you. We advise you turn off the podcast and you go, do the Pledge of Allegiance or something. I don't know. I don't know what the slaves, the stated slaves, do on their spare time.
Go vote or something. I don't know.
Go vote. Go to Black Friday or something.
On food stamps. Black Friday on food stamps.
Black Friday on food stamps.
Yeah.
Well, even outside of Walmart, very subsidized, monopoly like corporation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's they benefit from autistic and binary intervention and shit.
Dang.
Bam. So we go on to read here that basically everybody loses in utility because of that. So he goes on to say that who, in contrast, all these people that society would lost in utility, in contrast, um, gains in utility after the fact. So who, in contrast to these people that lose, society that loses in utility because we had our choices changed and taken from us, and deprived from us, who in contrast gains in utility after the fact, after this intervention has taken place? Clearly, the intervener. Otherwise, he, she, or they, right, would not have intervened. Either he gains in exchangeable goods at the expense of his subject, as in binary intervention, or as in autistic and triangular intervention, he gained in a sense of well being from enforcing regulations upon others. All instances of intervention, then, in contrast to the free market, are cases in which one set of men gains at the expense of other men. In binary intervention, the gains and losses are tangible in the form of exchangeable goods and services. In other types of intervention, the gains are non exchangeable satisfactions, and the loss consists in being coerced into less satisfying types of activity, if not positively painful ones. Before the development of economic science, people thought of exchange and the market as always benefiting one party at the expense of the other. This was the root of the mercantilist view of the market. Economics has shown that this is a fallacy, for on the market, both both parties to an exchange benefit. On the market, therefore, there can be no such thing as exploitation. But the thesis of a conflict of interest is true whenever the state or any other agency intervenes on the market. For then the intervener gains only at the expense of subjects who lose in utility. On the market, all is harmony. But as soon as intervention appears and is established, conflict is created. For each may participate in a scramble to be a net gainer rather than a net loser, to be part of the invading team instead of the ones of the victims. Hence politics, right?
Yeah.
We're all rooting to be on the winning team because we literally have to be subject to more tax burdens and slavery and conscriptions if you're on the losing team. So have fun with that.
Well, yeah.
It has become fashionable to assert that conservatives like John C. Calhoun anticipated the Marxian doctrine of class exploitation. But the Marxian doctrine holds erroneously that there are classes on the free market whose interests clash and conflict. Um, yeah, this is very interesting. We're getting into some really interesting stuff here now. As far as Marx's class theory and Calhoun's class theory and Agora's class theory and how it all ties together here. So I guess it's fashionable to assert that this guy, John C. Calhoun, was somehow a conservative that anticipated Marx's, idea of class struggle. Um, I guess he came out, John C. Calhoun, I guess obviously came out before Marx and came out with this articulation beforehand. So let's see what Calhoun has to say, because we know that Marx holds that there's classes within the free market that interests clash and conflict with each other. That wouldn't necessarily be true unless, of course, you're in the same class, right? And your workers usually conflict with workers, and because they're competing with each other. And same with producers, usually conflict with producers, right? Cell phone companies conflict with other ones and compete with each other, but that's only conflict in the sense of competition and not necessarily conflict in the sense of actual all-out warfare and battle and stealing it, and and people being oppressed and having things taken from them, intervention taking place, in other words. But Calhoun here points out that his insight was almost the reverse. Calhoun saw that it was the intervention of the state that in itself created classes and the conflict. He particularly perceived this in the case of binary intervention of taxes, for he saw that the proceeds of taxes are used and spent, and that some people in the community must be net payers of tax funds, while the others are net recipients.
All right, right. You're talking about the unfair treatment of taxpayers. Like um, a minority might, pay this much taxes and receive most of the plunder as far as free handouts go, and then meanwhile the poor mom and pop business shop has to struggle to stay open because not only are they getting taxed out the wazoo, uh, they don't have any sort of government help to help them out. Government don't help you out to keep your business open. That's not their job.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how you're in a lot of ways better off just sucking off the teat
Yeah, sucking off the teat of Uncle Sam.
than actually producing something, because producing something, then you got to jump through the hoops. And
Yeah, it's just too much work for the average day American nowadays. There's just too much work, too much time, too much energy.
yeah,
Why do that? I can, I'll just have, like 4 or 5 kids, and I'll get big and fat. I'll go to McDonald's every day. Celebrate Christmas. File my taxes.
use my EBT card at Jack in the Box.
Right. You know,
Well, and you know what, and to be completely fair, we're highly against corporate subsidies too. So I mean, all these jerk offs, working for Halliburton and working for Blackwater and working for
Bilderberg.
yeah, Google. And I mean, these guys, I mean, we avoid them and we boycott them. And I mean, we're fully aware of the corporate overlord hierarchy that is also on the teat of the taxpayers. So don't confuse us here with apologists for the special interests, because we're not. We're against all forms of intervention,
Of statism,
all three forms of intervention. Yeah.
of stanky statism.
So Calhoun here, he goes on to say that Calhoun defines the latter as the ruling class of the exploiters and the former as the ruled or the exploited. And the distinction is quite a cognate one. Calhoun set forth his analysis brilliantly in the following quote: few comparatively as they are, the agents and employees of the government constitute the portion of the community who are the exclusive recipients of the proceeds of taxes. Whatever amount is taken from the community in the form of taxes, if not lost, goes to them in the shape of expenditures or disbursements. The two, disbursement and taxation, constitute the fiscal action of the government. They are correlative. What the one takes from the community under the name of taxes is transferred to the portion of the community who are the recipients under that of disbursements. I'm sorry. But as the recipients constitute only a portion of the community, it follows, taking the two parts of the fiscal process together, that its action must be unequal between the payers of the taxes and the recipients of their proceeds, nor can it be otherwise, unless what is collected from each individual in the shape of taxes shall be returned to him in that of disbursements, which would make the process negatory and absurd. That's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, the whole point of taxation is to redistribute wealth. If everyone got exactly what they paid into taxes back, then it would be absurd, right? What's the point of having taxation if we all got exactly what we paid into it back?
It's just like even when you get your income tax, they don't even give you the whole amount that they took from you.
Yeah, and that's when you're and that's even when we make what we do. I mean, which isn't much.
He's like, which isn't much. Just didn't really need to point that out. Kind of suggested.
Yeah. If you're a fan of the show, you know how many times our computer goes down. So
Broke ass Agora.
in fact, we're trying to save up for a camera here so you can see our broke ass faces again.
You can see our broke ass faces and our broke ass setup. Nah, but we coming along. We ain't that broke ass. This is San Antonio. There's some broke ass ass.
Hmm.
There's some broke ass motherfuckers here.
All right. So yeah, it would be absurd if everyone just got it back. So yeah, taxation is redistribution at its core, at its foundation and its finality, right? So he goes on to say that such being the case, it must necessarily follow that one portion of the community must pay in taxes more than it receives back in disbursements, while another receives in disbursements more than it pays in taxes. It is then manifest, taking the whole process together, that taxes must be, in effect, bounties to that portion of the community which receives more in disbursements than it pays in taxes, while to the other, which pays in taxes more than it receives in disbursements, they are taxes in reality, burdens instead of bounties. This consequence is unavoidable. It results from the nature of the process. But the taxes ever so equally laid. The necessary result, then, of the unequal fiscal action of the government is to divide the community into two great classes, one consisting of those who in reality pay the taxes, and of course bear exclusivity to the burden of supporting the government, and the other of those who are the recipients of the proceeds through disbursements, and who are, in fact, supported by the government, or in fewer words, to divided it into taxpayers and tax consumers. But the effects of this is to place them in antagonistic relation in reference to the physical action of the government and the entire course of policy therewith connected. For the greater the taxes and disbursements, the greater gain of one and loss of the other, and vice versa. Huge.
Huge.
So, ruling and ruled, he goes on here, ruling and ruled apply also to the forms of government intervention. But Calhoun was quite right in focusing on taxes and fiscal policy as the keystone, for it is taxes that supply the resources and payment for the state in performing its myriad of other acts of intervention. Right? Taxes pay for all these forms of other intervention. I mean, how can the FDA, and the EPA be able to intervene with their regulatory system if it wasn't for taxation?
Which one that controls the monopolization on TV media?
Well, FCC or what?
Yeah, FCC.
Yeah. So all state intervention rests on the binary intervention of taxes as its base. Even if the state intervened nowhere else, its taxation would remain. Since the term social can be applied only to every single individual concerned, it is clear that while the free market maximizes social utility, no act of the state can ever increase social utility. Indeed, the picture of the free market is necessarily one of harmony and mutual benefit. The picture of the state intervention is one of caste conflict, coercion, and exploitation. And that wraps it up. and that was quite a heavy read for any of y'all that were paying attention and taking notes there. And I mean, this is huge here. This was really the beginning what Calhoun here articulated in pointing out these two classes, those that pay taxes and those that receive taxes. It's the beginning look at the and with what Oppenheimer presented with the economic means to production to wealth accumulation and the political means to wealth accumulation. We're starting to see we're starting to get a clearer picture of the libertarian uh, theory of classism or libertarian class theory, right? Which would essentially put the dividing line at those that produce, right? Those that exchange and live in the market and live through supply and demand, catalytics, and live through praxeology that isn't interventionary in any way, and those that exploit, right, and uh, live off the state, live off force, live off of intervention, live off of taxation. There is that is the divine, that is the class theory according to libertarian analysis. That is a class theory according to economics. That is a class theory according to objective ethics, ethical standards. Um, Now, where agorist class theory comes in and adds a little bit more to the spectrum is that, what Calhoun pointed out and what Oppenheimer pointed out, it seems kind of a pretty thick line in the sand, right? I mean, it's either it's black or white, either it's working, it's you're on the state side or you're on the free market side, and it fails to really have a spectrum in between, which is what's needed to properly have a well, a well defined class and how to move up and down and in those levels of the classes. Um, and those levels of gray would obviously be those acts that are kind of like halfway, halfway statist. There's a lot of them. I mean, working a white market job, right? I mean, it's market at the same time it's statist, right? You're paying taxes into the system. You're submitting to binary intervention, triangular intervention, and by doing so, I mean you're allowing yourself to not only be affected by this intervention, but also you're aggrandizing it. You're
You're advocating.
legitimizing.
Yeah, you're advocating
You're
it.
advocating it and you're supporting it by your tax dollars.
You're only making matters worse for yourself.
So agorism came in, Konkin and others came in, and they started articulating how there is a spectrum from completely statist actions, joining the military, being a cop, etc., and so forth, ratting out your neighbor because they're doing something voluntary to the cops or whatever, to less statist, right? Actions like, I don't know, working a white market job or paying your taxes, buying things on the official market that's all taxed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, Even voting, even though it might, even if it's voting for self defense, even if it's voting for less, less control, more freedom, you're still voting for statism. So it's kind of like that gray. It's in that gray area. It's like you're voting for freedom, but at the same time you're legitimizing the state. So all these actions plus many more would be considered, would be steps in between there. And then you have your fully libertarian or your fully market actions, which would be any production, any trade, any of that, any exchange essentially between individuals. And of course, this includes the exchange of ideas that happens completely outside of the state nexus without having to even go through the state. And this is what agorism seeks to achieve is a libertarian society through only libertarian means, right? Through only market means, and it's that consistency factor. If we want a libertarian society, if we want a market society, well, we probably should use libertarian and market means and strategies
More often
in
in
order to
our
get there. Yeah.
yeah, more often in our social lives. Yeah, and Rich is right. I mean, truly, I believe the way we can fight this system, truly, as a course, is through the market, through the power of production, the supply and demand, and people all demand freedom.
Yeah, right. And it's gonna come down to us, like Conkin said. I mean, and we're getting ahead of ourselves here because we wrapped up the second section here of power and market. But this talk of class theory and all that really gets me excited as far as agorism goes. And we definitely need to start getting in contact with each other in our cities and start huddling, living together, huddling together and geographically finding ways. I mean, the Free State Project is an attempt at that, and is being very successful. I think they're more than 75% of their goal, has been reached
Yeah.
as far as the amount of people that they want over there. So that's really great to hear.
Imagine not having to leave and starting that somewhere here in the United States. You
Well,
know,
yeah, that's yeah. I mean, it's happening in New Hampshire right now, Free State Project. So
so yeah, we need to get together and
we need somewhere for
build.
the South.
Yeah, and we need to build community here, right here in Texas.
Yeah, definitely. Wherever you're at, your city, you got definitely, even if it starts small, start with a group of
Yeah,
8 to 12, get everyone educated on libertarianism, get everyone educated on economics, get everyone educated on crypto anarchism, get everyone educated on the division of labor, where they can actually, um, add to the group what their specialties are, and then start forming a market. Have them form another group of 8. Each individual of that group of 8 go form another group of 8. Now you have 64 people, that are all up on libertarianism, understand economics, are all, actively specializing in something that they can all trade and help the underground economy, the underground agora, right? With so that's what we're trying to do here at the Agora Underground, trying to not only, of course, pass the word and distribute agorism, but trying to apply it more and more every day in our own personal lives. And we hope to grow with y'all as time takes us, on its journey
yeah,
to destiny. So,
and definitely grow with us because we are not just people who come out here and try to speak this. We are also very much students, as all of us are, because we are all learners. We're all still learning every day. It's something new, and we try to take it in little by little.
oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So definitely appreciate you guys listening in. We'll be back next week as usual, next Saturday, and that's about it, right? Check out Voluntary Virtues Network. Check out all the shows on there. Check us out on Facebook. Definitely check out the Agora Center of Thought and check out Free San Antonio. If you're in San Antonio, if you're in the Texas area, feel free to give us a call. Definitely love to hang out, chill, and exchange some ideas and grow the Agora. So peace, love, and anarchy to each and every one of y'all. Laissez faire.
Laissez faire, guys.
Peace out.